It's a Monday. How you guys doing? It's a wild Monday. For that much. The college football season's in jeopardy. It's in jeopardy, and I'm not sure we're going to get it. We're going to talk about it because I don't think the way I feel about it is the way that most people feel about it. So that's what we're going to do at the top of the show today. But thank you so much for joining us on a Monday, twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live, wherever you're coming to us from. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Listen, there's a lot to unpack here with this college football thing because it's not as easy as I think some people are making it. It's not as easy as listening to the players. We'll unpack that in a second. Let me set the agenda for the day. Like I said, we'll start at the top with college football and the season sort of hanging in the balance. About 11:20, we'll talk Collin Morikawa, who is a major champion at 23 years old out at TBC Harding Park in San Francisco. We'll get to that at 11:20 or so. Some significant things happened in the NBA over the weekend. We'll sort of take a step back, see where we are as we really close down the seeding games here and get really close to the playoffs. There are certainly things still up in the air. Most notably, the 8 seed out in the West. It's very close. There's going to be a playing game regardless of how it actually shakes out. But the teams who are going to be a part of that play-in are still very much at large, and so we'll get to that at about 11:40 or so, and then we'll do FYI and get out of here for the day. But like I said, I want to start with college football. So right now, as of about an hour ago, the most recent thing I saw was it looks like it's the Big Ten and the Pac-12 who are very much in the canceling their season boat. From what I saw, that was Matt Hayes from Bleacher Report reporting that it looks like it's going to be Big Ten and Pac-12 versus the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 in terms of where they're feeling about the college football season. At first, it was reported that those two conferences were firmly in the let's not play the season camp, and they still are, while the ACC and Big 12 are still on the fence, and it was the SEC sort of lobbying with other schools to join them for the season, because the SEC very much seems like they're doing whatever they can to play. So that's where we are right now. It's I think Big Ten, 12 of the 14 presidents, I think Iowa and Nebraska were the only two schools that were still pushing and lobbying to play. The other 12 were in agreement to cancel the season. So clearly it's making some headway with university presidents. I want to talk about this unionization of college football players, what they're wanting to do here, and specifically the tweet that Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback, put out on Twitter about their demands, so to speak, sort of a Power 5 all-encompassing statement that was made kind of like the Pac-12 football players made with the Players Tribune article a couple weeks ago. I'll read you what their demands are. So first, it starts simply: we all want to play football this season. We want established, universal, mandated health and safety procedures and protocols to protect college athletes against COVID-19 among all conferences throughout the NCAA. Give players the opportunity to opt out and respect their decision. Guarantee eligibility whether a player chooses to play the season or not. Use our voices to establish open communication and trust between players and officials. Ultimately create a college football players association, representative of the players of all Power 5 conferences. Now, before I get to the part that I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me with here, is I want to make it really clear that I'm all for player empowerment. I'm all for player empowerment at the college level. I'm all for a college football players association. I'm cool with that. I've got no issue with that. These athletes have been walked all over for far too long, and some sort of unified voice needs to be implemented for these players, because we can't other things have to change if we're really going to act like this is still an amateur sport. And when there's this much money involved, the players should be able to unionize, group, be a unified front, whatever you want to use, whatever terminology you want to use, to combat and to have a say in what goes on. Quite frankly, I think players should always be able to opt out of a season. I mean, you can have your base guidelines for, you have 4 years of eligibility. You can make it so it's not absolutely ridiculous, but I don't see any reason why players can't always opt out, whether it's for personal reasons or anything else. It shouldn't take a pandemic for players to be able to opt out and still be able to keep their scholarship. I mean, there are things that happen. There are situations that are unforeseen, and it isn't just injuries, and it certainly isn't just global pandemic. So I'm all for representation of college athletes, representation of these players who, as of now, and hopefully this changes, January of 2021 when the NCAA votes on this, but players who still right now don't reap the benefits of their labor. I'm all for that. Very much so. But in my head here, that's not what this is about. And I've been trying to come up with the best way to explain this, and so I'll go with a very simple analogy. So you're a kid, and you want to go out and ride your bike by yourself. And you list out all the reasons why to your mom why you should be able to do this, like independence, responsibility, you can take care of yourself, all of those things. Awesome. But then your mom says no, because there was a really big storm, and there are too many puddles and trees down all over the place. And as your leader / guardian, your mother, is not going to let you go out because it puts you in unnecessary danger. It doesn't ultimately mean you can never ride your bike again. And it doesn't mean that she disagrees that you're independent and responsible and awesome. In this analogy, the NCAA is the mother and the college athletes are the kid. Because, do you think the NCAA wants to not have football? Do you think the conferences want to not have football? Of course not. This is a $1 billion industry we're talking about here. Athletic programs make tens and hundreds of millions of dollars off football every single year. Every single year. This is not something that they want to do, believe me. But playing football and these conferences and the NCAA have quite intelligently, I might say, come to the conclusion that it's just not worth putting these athletes at risk, at unnecessary risk. Because that's what's happening if we play the college football season. The points these players are making are good ones, and there are things that should definitely be taken into account. There are things that have to happen in the sports world because of COVID-19 to just make it work, and there are some things that should be implemented for this era and then let go once COVID-19 is no longer a thing. But this is not one of those things. This is one of those things that has gotten has gained momentum. The snowball's gotten bigger, and it shouldn't be just forgotten about once this global pandemic is over. This empowerment of college athletes, college athletes feeling like they have the ability to speak up and actually be heard, these are all very good things. But this isn't a conversation. But at the end of the day, the NCAA is still responsible for their athletes. Even if in a lot of ways this is a professional sport, and it is. In a lot of ways it's a professional sport. From a legal and a definition standpoint, it's still an amateur sport. So as of right now, if that is the case, then the NCAA isn't going to listen to their athletes the way that the NBA listened to their athletes when it comes to talking about the bubble, the way that the NFL listened to their players, because a players' association doesn't exist. And the NCAA has come to the conclusion now that it's not worth putting the players that they're responsible for at risk. Listen, these two things can coexist. You can be all for listening to athletes and having real conversations and letting them be a real part of the decision-making of the NCAA. Brilliant. Fantastic. It really is. But this isn't what this is a commentary on. This isn't a time to yell and scream and, get your pitchforks and your fire and go stomping down the doors of the NCAA. There are a lot of times to do that. I mean, you could do that today for dozens and dozens of reasons. But this is not one of them. You shouldn't be knocking down the doors of the Big Ten and the Pac-12 for coming to the conclusion that this is the safest thing to do for these athletes. If you want to get mad at somebody, don't get mad at the NCAA. Get mad at the leadership in this country that after 6 months of this global pandemic, that there still is not a unified front, a unified push against this global pandemic. Because that's why we're where we are now. Instead, we turned public health and safety into a political issue. And as a result, every other country on this planet, every other well-developed country on this planet, has the virus under control except this one. And that's why we're not having college football. You want to get mad at somebody, get mad at that. The NCAA and the conferences are just adjusting accordingly, reacting accordingly, and quite frankly, reacting accordingly means not having a season. Because it completely puts these athletes at risk, because whether you want to believe it or not, this is something that can kill college athletes. Playing the college football season could directly result in a player losing their life when they don't have to, when they don't need to, when it's unnecessary risk. It could happen. Now, the statistics and what we know about this say that it probably won't. That young people that are as healthy as college athletes are probably going to be okay, even if they do get the virus. But it's certainly not a given that they will be. And even if one person dies as a result of playing college football this season, it's too many. And doesn't justify playing the season. No loss of life is justified if it's a result of the college football season being played. This isn't a conversation about what the NCAA should do when it comes to putting their athletes in the conversation. Believe me, the players and the conferences and the NCAA, they're all on the same page about wanting to play. There's no way they aren't. But there's a difference between wanting to play and understanding what the correct response is to the current situation in this country. There just is. Nationals reliever Sean Doolittle several months ago now said that sports are the reward for a functioning society. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I'm going to categorize this society as functioning. It's a society that needs to focus on a lot of other things other than sports. Sports are the reward for when the more important things are under control. And right now, those more important things aren't under control. Believe me, I'd love to have a college football season. Would love to have a college football season. And so would the players, and so would the conferences, and so would the NCAA. But as the leader of amateur athletics, and you can, you could bounce back with if there's any real legitimacy to that phrase. But right now, the way that things are, the conferences and the NCAA are responsible for their athletes. And they've made the responsible decision, whether you like it or not, whether the players like it or not, to not play the season because they shouldn't play the season. This is the same virus that shut down the entire sports world after one positive case. One. And now in every single way imaginable, it's worse than it was on March 11th when Rudy Gobert tested positive. In every way imaginable. So with that in mind, give me one good reason why they should play other than we want sports back. Give me one real reason why they should play. Give me one real reason why the conclusion that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have come to are the wrong decisions. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to be disappointed. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to be sad. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to be frustrated because you wanted sports. That's fine. Believe me, I get that. But if you're genuinely angry and genuinely don't understand why they are doing what they're doing and why they're approaching it the way that they are, then I can't help you. Because right now there are more important things than football. I mean, there are always more important things than football, but right now there are far more important things that need to be figured out and far more important things that need to be under control before we play football. And I think it's miscalculated to use this, even if it might be true, even if this is an issue that needs to be discussed. Using this situation as the chance to call out the NCAA about not representing their players accordingly. Again, there's a very real argument there. But I'm not sure this is the right place to do it. I'm not sure trying to fault the NCAA for doing what they, in these conferences, for doing what they think is best for their athletes. I'm not sure this is the time to call for unionization. I'm not sure this is the time to make these conferences and the NCAA the bad guy. Even if they are a lot of times. I'm not sure this is the time to do that. I'm all for the player empowerment. I'm all for the representation. I'm all for the NCAA listening to athletes and making them a part of the conversation. But I also understand that canceling the season is the right call. And if you, the viewer, you, the hypothetical person who thinks it's your birthright to college football this fall and you didn't wear a mask all summer, then if you need to get mad at somebody, get mad at you because you're absolutely part of the problem. But at the end of the day, college athletics don't make a lot of sense right now. They don't. They just don't. Coming up next, we'll talk about Collin Morikawa. He's 23 years old and a major champion. He's one of just 3 other players. He's one of 4 players to win a PGA at the age of 23. I'll tell you who the other 3 are, and we'll talk about his win at TPC Harding Park in San Francisco next on the JMULL Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Monday, twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. If you haven't been over to the site yet today, we got some news stories up over there. Got some more NFL draft regrades, MLB power rankings. Josh Doring has, the host of Touchline Talk, will have some soccer content out over the next couple days. You got the MLS's back tournament final tomorrow, and the Champions League getting underway once again. So lots of soccer, lots of basketball, both professional and college. And, of course, Chris Brown continues to absolutely kill the MLB coverage game. So if you haven't stopped by the site in the last few days, there's a lot of content up there for you to catch up on. What I want to get to now is Collin Morikawa is a major champion at 23 years old. Listen, a bogey-free 64 on Sunday at TPC Harding Park in San Francisco. 11 under on the weekend. He shot 69s both days in the first two rounds, 2 under. And now he's a major champion. He joins 3 players, and these are 3 pretty good players. 3 players to hoist the Wanamaker Trophy at the age of 23. The first is Jack Nichols. All-time major champions leader, 18 major championships. I don't know if you've heard, but he's pretty good. Following him, Tiger Woods, the second leader in major championships at 15, won the 2019 Masters. He's second on that list, tied for the most PGA Tour titles of all time. He's pretty good. And then you've got a guy on your list here at number 3 by the name of Rory McIlroy. Kiowa Island, 2012. 2010. He's pretty good too. So Collin Morikawa in elite company winning the PGA. He's one of 9 players in the last 102 years to win the championship in his debut. It's only his second major. He's batting .500 in major championships. 2 starts, 1 win. He's now missed the same number of cuts in his professional career, 1, as major championships. He was chasing down Tiger's 25 straight made cuts to begin his career. He missed, I believe, the cut at the Memorial, which is funny because he won the week before at Muirfield Village. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he missed the cut at Muirfield the next week at the Memorial. But still, 1 missed start. Now he's up to 3 wins. He won the Barracuda last year and then won the Workday. And now he's a major champion at the age of 23. He hit one of the best shots at a major ever on Sunday. Tied for the lead, 16T. 16 is a short par 4 on most days at TPC Harding Park. On Sunday, it was a drivable par 4. It played roughly 330 for most of the week. They moved the tees up 294, pen front right, and Colin with his patented baby fade, 7 feet, hit it to 7 feet. It's the best major championship shot that no one will ever see. Nobody was there. It was funny yesterday. I believe it was Ben On. He had a hole-in-one at 11, I think. Hole-in-one, and you could just hear one Marshall spotter volunteer back behind the green go, "Oh!" And that was it. So it was a delayed reaction from Ben On. It was just, okay, let's go get the ball out of the hole now. Can you imagine the roars if there were, 5 rows deep of people following Morikawa in the last 3 holes of the major? Tied with Paul Casey at 11 under. 7 feet. And just drains it. Drains a putt that people have been missing on the low side all day. All day. 294 driver to 7 feet, makes the putt, and then hits like a pro, just hits a lot of good golf shots coming in. Pen high on the tough par 3. It was a shorter par 3 at 17 today, but on Sunday, but typically a tough hole. And under the circumstances, certainly not easy. It was a front left pen. He's a fader of the golf ball, so it wasn't a great pen location for him. He hit it pen high, 2-putt par. Found the fairway 317 yards away from the tee box on 18 and tugged his 9-iron a little bit from 161, but because he was playing from the middle of the green, he tugged it. It went right over the flag. He had 15 feet, 2-putt from there. And he's a major champion at the age of 23. He was first. Listen, Colin Morikawa is the best iron player on the PGA Tour right now. The best. He's a great driver of the golf ball. He led the field in driving accuracy this week. But where he dominated the field was in strokes gained putting. 8 strokes gained putting this week. Listen, Morikawa, just like Jordan Spieth in his prime, in Jordan Spieth's prime, he was also a phenomenal ball striker. But Jordan Spieth, in his prime, he's still under the age of 30. But in Jordan Spieth's prime, what Jordan Spieth did was he was never out of a tournament because he putted it so well. He could be hitting iron shots to, solid iron shots to 25, 30 feet all day, and he would make a lot of them, like a historic amount of them, because he was such a great putter from 25 to 35 feet. So even if he just hit it average, he was going to be in contention. Morikawa is that kind of guy, just reversed. He's that good from the fairway. He was first in strokes gained putting this week, and as a result, he wins the golf tournament. He's always going to put himself in good positions. Always going to put himself in good positions on the greens. It's just a matter of him making putts. It's just a matter of him making putts. And this week he made putts. First in strokes gained putting. And as a result, you've got a 23-year-old PGA champion. He's second on the PGA Tour in strokes gained approach to the green, behind Justin Thomas, who there's certainly an argument that Justin Thomas is the best iron player on the PGA Tour right now. But listen, who are you? I mean, would you take anybody? If I gave you Justin Thomas and Collin Morikawa against the field right now, I might be taking Justin Thomas and Collin Morikawa. I mean, JT wins in Memphis. It's Morikawa and JT in a playoff at the workday. JT didn't play great this week. He sprayed the driver a little bit. Didn't have a great putting week. But listen, those are two of the best players on tour right now. And they're the two best. And guess who was third? Guess who's third in strokes gained approach the green right now? Paul Casey, who came in second. It was a ball striker's golf course, and it's not a secret. So Morikawa was always going to be lurking. And he didn't putt great the first 2 days. So 69 both days. Putted well in the weekend, 65, 64, 11 under, 13 under total. We've got a superstar in Collin Morikawa. It's pretty poetic, actually. He went to school just 30 minutes away from TPC Harding Park at Cal Berkeley. Was an All-American there. And now he's a major champion less than 2 years later at the age of 23 in San Francisco at TPC Harding Park. The guy is an absolute stud who's just not afraid of the big moment. And who stepped up, down the stretch. You had a lot of guys fade. I mean, Paul Casey never actually faded. It's sort of sitting around waiting for Paul Casey to blow up, because that's usually what he does at some point on the back nine of a major. He got his first runner up, and he played solid down the stretch. He really did. He just didn't play quite as well as Morikawa. the youth is here, man. The youth is here. Morikawa was joined by Scotty Scheffler, who was in the final group with Dustin Johnson, Matthew Wolff, Cameron Champ, all in the top 10. Scheffler and Wolff in their first majors. The youth is here, man. Cameron Champ, 25 years old, is the oldest in that group, which is crazy. Champ, he didn't play poorly yesterday. He just didn't make enough putts. He didn't have any big blow-up holes. He just didn't hit enough shots close enough down the stretch. He was right there, one or two back for pretty much the entire day and could never make a couple birdies to actually get up there with the leaders. Tony Finau and Bryson DeChambeau were honestly one of the more exciting groups yesterday. They both shot 66. I'm a little upset that Finau picked yesterday to play really well in a final round because, of course, yesterday was the day I put money on Bryson DeChambeau to have a better round than Finau, and DeChambeau went out there and shot 66. Unfortunately, so did Finau. But I love that for Tony in all seriousness. This is one of those days that Finau's never horrible in final rounds. I mean, he certainly has the stigma of not being a closer on top of him. But a lot of times it's just because other guys go deeper, go lower on courses that really Finau should be able to. That's the thing. When you compare it to his first 3-round scores, I think he's in the top 25 of scoring in all 3 rounds except the final round. I think it's something like that. But he played really well. Yesterday with DeChambeau. That's a lightning and a bottle type of group. They're both like a ridiculous number under par when they play with each other. So that's really awesome to see for both of them. Koepka faded down the stretch a little bit. Like I said, Paul Casey was up there as well as Justin Rose. It was the first runner-up in a major for Casey. And Rose, after seeing, it's been a pretty rough last 18 months or so, since he made the switch from TaylorMade to Hamna, really struggled with equipment for a while, but he's the type of player that golf course fits him. He's a beautiful ball striker, and he got the putter rolling at times this week. Didn't have a great last day. I mean, he hung around, but he certainly, he was a couple back. I believe he was 2 back heading into the last day, and just didn't have the day that you needed to have. I mean, Morikawa shot 64. I mean, this is an underrated part of this, is that Morikawa was 7 under. He was also 2 back and ends up winning by 2 when there were a lot of guys that had solid days. Dustin Johnson just never made enough birdies. He didn't play poorly, but he didn't play great. I mean, Morikawa really was the only one who turned in a great round from the guys who were at the top of the leaderboard, close to the top. I mean, DeChambeau and Finau both turned in great rounds of 66, but they were both 6 under to start the day, so they needed a little help. And played great, really did. But like I said, Morikawa with the 64, just a little too much for them. Morikawa, like I said, putted well. He's 140th in strokes gained putting on the PGA Tour. He's actually losing .121 strokes on average to the field when it comes to putting. This week he gained 8 strokes. He's going to be that kind of guy. Every week and hopefully he can put it together on a more consistent basis than Rory does. I'm just so tired of having the conversation about how Rory can't putt anymore. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. But hopefully he can put the putts together a little bit more frequently than Rory does, because that's just the narrative of Rory all the time. It was the same this week. He just couldn't putt this week. He should always be in contention the way that he drives the golf ball. But he's just not, because he doesn't make enough putts. Rory did shoot 68 yesterday, finished 2 under, so that's a good end to the tournament for him, but he was never in contention. Tiger Woods was pretty much done with his round before anybody of any significance teed off in terms of the leaderboard, but he played pretty well yesterday as well. I think shot 67. So also a good day for Tiger. Looks like he'll take the week off and then be back at TPC Boston in 2 weeks. But there it is. Collin Morikawa. the PGA champion, the first major winner in over a year. Which is crazy it's been that long. But now we got a really awesome stretch of golf. I mean, before Christmas, we've got 2 more majors, a playoff, a FedEx Cup playoffs. And then before August 10th of next year, you'll have 4 more. You'll have 6 more majors. A Ryder Cup at the end of next year. An Olympics. Lots of, as long as we can get this under control, there's a lot of great golf in the next 11 months or so to be looking forward to. And we're, it's not like we've got a hiatus here. We've got the playoffs in a couple weeks. We got the U.S. Open and the Masters before Thanksgiving. Hopefully we can hit the ground running with the 2021 PGA Tour wraparound schedule. But coming up next, we'll talk about the NBA. There's just some things that we need to chat about. It was a pretty busy weekend on the NBA side of things. We're getting down to the end of seeding games, and things are still up for grabs. But we'll talk about the things that are up for grabs when we come back. You're watching the JMULL Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Monday. Listen, my buddy Mosen hit it on the head with this tweet. Said, y'all better start wearing masks or we're going to get the NFL canceled too. Facts. Wear your mask if you want football. Because if not, it's probably not going to happen. But it wouldn't take very long to get this thing under control if literally everyone would wear a mask for a month and a half. It really wouldn't take that long. That's the secret here. That's the secret. It's not even a secret. It's just common sense. But listen, there's a lot to get to on the NBA side of things. Celtics beat the Raptors over the weekend. You know, that's a likely second-round matchup in the Eastern Conference, so that's interesting, something to take note of. The Pelicans were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. You know, that was the talk prior to the bubble. The Pelicans have a really easy schedule, have a chance to track down the Grizzlies, and pretty much everybody got closer to the Grizzlies except the Pelicans. Pretty much. Now, they technically got closer because the Grizzlies spotted everybody 4 games, but they didn't get a whole lot closer, and now as of August 10th, they are mathematically eliminated. It was actually yesterday, but mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, so there will be no Zion versus LeBron in the first round of the playoffs. My heart is sad. Okay, not really. But the Grizzlies finally got a win. The Suns have now beat the Clippers, Pacers, and Heat in 3 straight. They still sit a game and a half back of Memphis. They're half a game back of the Spurs and a game back of the Trailblazers, who currently sit half a game behind the Grizzlies for the 8th seed. Listen, there's going to be a playing game. We don't know who yet. I mean, there's a world in which it could be, you know, the Blazers could lose a couple straight and not be in it at all. The Grizzlies could lose a couple straight and manage to cough up a 3.5 game lead in, you know, a week and a half, essentially. That would be tough. But, and we'll look at the remaining schedules here in a minute, but there's a lot going on for the 8 and 9 seeds. I mean, there are 4 teams that genuinely have a shot to win, to get in the play-in games. I mean, that's really exciting. I think that's way better than any of us were hoping for. Certainly didn't see Phoenix doing what they're doing. They've now beat, like I said, the Clippers, Pacers, and Heat in Orlando. I think there are a couple of those teams that should scare the Lakers a little bit. I mean, Memphis just doesn't have the teeth they used to. Portland, I think, should scare LA a little bit. They should. If Phoenix plays like this, where they're scoring 120 points a night, they should at least make the Lakers sweat a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. There should at least be, you know, it shouldn't be a foregone conclusion when you could end up playing a team that will probably have the best record in the bubble. You just probably shouldn't have. You just shouldn't let that be a foregone conclusion. What also shouldn't be a foregone conclusion is the Clippers beating the Mavericks in the first round of the playoffs. If Luka Doncic is going to do what he did to the best NBA defense over the weekend, 36, 19, and 14 against the Bucks, Giannis and Chris Middleton. They're far and away the best defensive team in the NBA. Giannis is probably going to be the defensive player of the year. And Chris Middleton is no slouch either. They play incredible team defense, and they've got elite perimeter defenders on their team. 36, 19, and 14. Those are stupid numbers. Stupid. Now, are the Mavericks going to beat the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs? No. No, they're not. It's not going to happen. I mean, the Mavs needed all of that to beat the Bucks. All of it. They won in overtime. They needed all of it. And Luka's not going to do that in 7 games against the Clippers. Against PG and Kawhi. But you can't tell me it's a foregone conclusion when you do that to the best defense in the NBA. I don't care if they aren't playing all that hard. I mean, Middleton, Giannis, Brook Lopez, they had Eric Bledsoe back. Everybody played more than 33 minutes. So it's not like they played 16 minutes and it was the Bucks reserves. Yes, it's a different animal in the playoffs, and I understand that, but when you get what you got from Luka and you're able to take down the Bucks like that, you can't tell me it's a foregone conclusion. You just can't. You can't tell me it's not. You're not at least a little bit interested and what that series could produce. I mean, you got between Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez. Let me do some quick math here. You got 89 points. 89. I believe that's the right math. 89 points. Brook Lopez, Eric Bledsoe, 15 points on 6 of 10 shooting for him. There's still a lot of questions about the rest of the guys on that team. You get 9 points from George Hill and 8 points from Pat Connaughton, but that was pretty much it otherwise. Granted, Brook Lopez took 27 shots and was 6 of 12 from the three-point line. So there are a lot of shots between specifically him and Giannis, 26 and 27 respectively. But Porzingis had 26. I mean, I think this is the secret that nobody is talking about. It's like Porzingis could have a crazy series against the Clippers. Crazy. Finney-Smith had 27 on 10 of 19. Luka was 12 of 24, 36 points, 19 assists, and 14 rebounds. You got 15 from Maxi Kleber, 10 from Trey Burke. Seth Curry played 21 minutes and was 1 of 7 for the field. He probably won't do that again in the bubble. All I'm saying is that it could be interesting. They're not going to beat them. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't care when it is. If you put 36, 19, and 14 up against Giannis and the Bucks, then you have a chance of doing it to the Clippers. You just do. Because statistically speaking, the Bucks are the better defensive team. Now, the Clippers have more guys to put on Luka, and I understand that. Real quick, Memphis' remaining games, Boston and Milwaukee, tough. Especially when Portland's remaining games are Dallas and Brooklyn. San Antonio's remaining games are Houston and Utah. I'm going to pat myself on the back on the Jays for Days podcast that you see right there on the screen. I said that both Houston and OKC are going to jump the Jazz. And guess what Houston and OKC have done? They've jumped the Jazz. San Antonio, Houston, and Utah, Phoenix, OKC, Philly, and Dallas. So nobody has super easy games left. I mean, of course, you've got the 22 best teams in the NBA there. You're not going to have any super easy games, especially if you're not playing the Wizards. Sorry, cheap shot there at the Wizards. But Memphis with Boston and Milwaukee, I mean, you're talking about 2 of the 3 best teams in the East. And that's a tough straw, especially when you're trying to hold on to a half-game lead. I mean, Portland will probably go 1-1. Will go at least 1-1, and they could probably go 2-0. Especially when Dallas doesn't have a whole lot to play for in terms of jockeying for position. They're pretty much locked into that 7 seed. It'll be interesting. We got a week left, 5 days. And Memphis definitely has the toughest schedule with the half-game lead. We'll see what happens. We're going to take a quick break, come back with FYI to close out the show. Thank you so much for joining us on a Monday. You're watching the JMULL Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show, wrapping up the show with some FYI here. If you didn't know this about me, here's an FYI about me first. I love amateur golf. The U.S. women's and U.S. amateur. It's honestly up there as one of my favorite, set of 2 weeks in the sports calendar all year. This past week, you had the women at Woodmont Country Club in Maryland, Rose Zhang, the 17-year-old, holding off defending champion Gabrielle Ruffles and 38 holes to win the 120th U.S. Women's Amateur yesterday. So shouts to Rose. This week, the USAM, the men's side, play at Bandon Dunes in Oregon. Never been to Bandon Dunes, but I've heard incredible things about the golf course and about just the resort and the feel out there in Oregon on Bandon Trails. I've heard it's awesome. I can't wait to watch it on TV this week. It's going to be spectacular. But it's amateur golf time. I was, at one point the tournaments were postponed, canceled. At least I thought they were. Maybe I'm mistaken there, but I was unaware that the tournaments were actually being played. But they are. I'm really excited about it. That's this week out at Bandon Dunes. I think most of the coverage is on Golf Channel when there is coverage. Typically, there's not any stroke play coverage. It'll start with coverage of the round of 64, 3 rounds of stroke play, or 2 rounds of stroke play, 2 or 3 rounds of stroke play, followed by 64 team bracket, a 64 player bracket play like the NCAA tournament. But that's this week out at Bandon Dunes, and then of course Touchline Talk with Josh Doring tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Around the Bases with Chris Brown at 1 p.m. Eastern. Josh will break down, I'm sure, some Champions League stuff. We'll break down the MLS is back final, which is tomorrow night. Lots to talk about on the soccer side of things, and lo and behold, there's still a lot to talk about on the baseball side. The baseball season is canceled. I think once the Cardinals actually get back into play, we'll knock on wood a little bit here, but hopefully they can get things under control a little bit. Hopefully that was a wake-up call, what happened to the Marlins and the Cardinals, and that way they can actually continue on with play. Because here, the thing is that if that didn't if basically a whole team getting COVID-19 didn't shut down the baseball season, then probably nothing's going to shut down the baseball season. Right? I kind of think that's the case. So Chris Brown is still there, trucking along, talking about baseball on Around the Bases. That's 1 p.m. Eastern, 110sportsmedia.com/live, twitch.tv/110sports. I'll be back on Wednesday. We'll see what there's to talk about. There might be the lack of a college football season to talk about. There might not be. We'll see what is actually going on when it comes to college football when we get back together on Wednesday. Also, Steph Curry is getting his own Under Armour brand. So like Jordan brand is to Nike, Steph Curry brand is to Under Armour. That's kind of dope and really gives you an idea of just how big he is and in basketball culture, what he's really responsible for the way that the game is played today and sort of the space and pace and shooting a lot of threes. What he did with the Warriors is the reason that everybody does it now. That gives you just an idea of how much impact he has on basketball, because it takes quite a bit for you to have a shoe that doesn't have the Nike logo on it for Jordan. You won't find the Nike logo on Jordan brand shoes. And you won't find the Under Armour logo on Steph Curry's shoes. I wonder if it's the 3 holding up. You see him in those hats, his logo, holding up a 3. I'll be curious to see if it's that or something else. But nonetheless, you got Steph Curry brand, and really gives you an idea of how big he is. But I'll be back on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Same place, same time, 110sportsmedia.com/live, twitch.tv/110sports. Take care of yourselves until then, and I'll see you on Wednesday.